Chapter 8. Two Thrown Stones. Faster, Janner! Tink yelled over his shoulder as he sprinted toward town. Janner was huffing behind him, unable to keep up. As they passed the livery on the edge of town, Janner heard a deeper sound. Below, Lily's scream and Nugget's growls, the dreadful, unmistakable hiss and a snarl of a fang. Janner looked from one side of the street to the other, desperate for some clue as to where the screams were coming from, but they seemed to be everywhere. Tink bolted down the main street, which was mostly deserted. The few adults who remained were hustling toward the cliffs, thinking only of the annual dance of the sea dragons. If they heard the screams and the growling at all, they showed no sign of it. Out of the corner of Tink's eye, down a narrow alleyway between Farinia's flower shop and Jay Bird's barber shop, he saw a fang struggling with something. Tink skidded to a stop, and Janner plowed right into him, nearly knocking him down. There in the alley, in a cloud of dust, Nugget was darting back and forth between the fang's legs, evading the fang's furious efforts to stab him with a spear. Lily screamed again, and without a second thought, her brothers ran down the alley to save her, though they both knew there was nothing two young boys could do pitted against a fang of Dang. The narrow alley led around the corner into a small area behind the back of Farinia's and her stables. Lily was curled into a ball, while a second fang held her in place with the butt of his spear. One fang watched with grim delight as the other struggled with the little black dog. Nugget was in a frenzy, pouncing in and out, snarling and snapping at the fang. The fang standing over Lily was chuckling in a thin, papery voice. "What's the matter, Slarb? Is that smelly little thing too much for you?" Slarb growled as he jabbed again at Nugget. The spear nicked Nugget in the leg as he yelped. Lily screamed, and the fang jabbed at her with the butt end of his spear just as her brothers burst around the corner. Tink in the lead, Lily saw them and began kicking at the fang with renewed vigor. Janner found himself on Slarb's back, burying him and beating him with all of his might around the neck and the shoulders. It was the first time he had ever touched a fang, and he was dimly surprised how cold the scaly skin really was. Tink dove past the second fang, grabbed Lily's arms, and tried to pull her away. Slarb, with Janner on his back, hissed and thrashed, his long, sharp fangs dripping with venom that burned at the touch. Nugget bit the lizard's leg and wouldn't let go. The other fang seized Tink by his shoulder collar and yanked him backward into the ground, where he lay choking and clutching his throat. Lily reached for her crutch, but the fang snatched it from her and crushed it into splinters. She saw bits of wood etched with purple flowers flying through the air. The fang then strode over to Slab and kicked Nugget hard in the belly, sent him flying through the air with a yelp. The little dog crashed into the wooden wall and landed in a motionless heap. Slab hurled Janner over his shoulder and onto the ground. He bent over Janner's neck with his scaly jaw wide open, barring his dripping fangs to bite. The second fang drew his sword and raised it to strike Tink. Lily was helpless but to close her eyes and pray. At that moment there was a dull thunk. Slab's black eyes rolled back and he fell unconscious on top of Janner. The second fang had time to see that Slarb had been hit in the head with a fist-sized rock before he felt a stone smash into his own temple. He tottered for a moment, then crumpled to the dirt. Tink lay there stunned. "Where did those rocks come from?" he asked between gasps for air. Lily's hands were folded tight, her eyes were still shut. She opened one of her ears, amazed that the three of them were still alive. They heard Janner's muffled voice from beneath the fang, and Tink snapped out of his daze. After a few heaves and hoes, he pushed Slarb off, and Janner scrambled away with a moan, wiping his neck where the fang's burning venom had dripped on it. Janner rushed over to Lily and helped her up, inspecting her carefully. "Are you hurt?" Lily trembled but shook her head, pushing her hair from her face. She hugged her brothers and smiled through stubborn tears. Nugget, she cried and hobbled over to the little black heap. One of the fangs groaned and stirred. We should get out of here, Jenner said. We don't want to be here when these guys wake up. Lily was crying, stroking Nugget's face. Lily, we have to go, Jenner urged, pulling her away from the dog. Suddenly, Nugget yelped and leaped to his feet. Hackles raised, he bared his teeth and circled menacingly. But his fearlessness melted when he saw Lily, and he set to licking her face, wagging his tail as if nothing had happened. Lily struggled to free herself and get to her feet, and then she pointed at her ruined crutch. I won't be going anywhere with that. Here, Janner said, sidling up beside her and pulling one of her arms around his neck. It looks like you're going to have to let us help you for once. Let's go, he said, and they hurried out of the alleyway, leaving it completely empty. Except, of course, for the two fangs lying in the dirt, the two stones that knocked them unconscious, and the mysterious figure on the roof of J. Beard's barbershop, watching the three Igby children flee.